is certainly a part of that recipe.
Let's talk about a very important part of the recipe, and that's Frank Reich. Obviously, first year as a head coach, offensive coordinator from the Eagles. Ed Kratz, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles, going to be joining us here in about an hour or so, and he's certainly going to talk with us about the Eagles and the Saints and that matchup there. But he talked with us early on when we got Frank Reich. What a better decision it was for us, for the Colts and Ballard, against that guy from New England. We won't even mention his name. I cannot tell you how ecstatic we look back and we're like, what were they thinking in him? But Frank Reich, you got to admit, do we not like it a lot, him to Tony Dungy? Does Frank Reich remind you a lot of the style of Tony Dungy? It just seems like he's just so calm, cool, and collected. And he's not chopping wood like Chuck Pagano. Congratulations to Chuck Pagano for getting the defensive coordinator up there at the Bears. You know, good guy and very well respected around the league, but he just wasn't a match here. I think Frank Reich found his match here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Tony Dungy was around the Colts complex a little bit earlier this week doing his preparation because this is a Sunday night football, even though it's in the afternoon. It's on NBC, and so you're going to have Dungy on the pregame, halftime, and postgame with Rodney Harrison. And so Dungy came in, and the players were talking about how their messages are really, really similar. And one of the things that I find to be very, very similar between those two guys is they are all about process, and there aren't emotional highs and there aren't emotional lows with these guys. They're going after this day after day after day. That's what Tony did. That's what Frank's doing. And you're right. I mean, Josh McDaniels, what he did was really everybody thought that he did a favor to the Patriots by sticking around. I think he did a favor to the Colts. I think the Colts dodged a bullet. The one thing that I don't understand, I trust over the last 2 years, Chris Ballard has built great equity in the trust that Colts fans and Colts media have for his process, his ability to draft and sign free agents. The one thing that he did where I was like, oh, no, was hire Josh McDaniels. And then all of a sudden it comes to pass that it falls through. And I'll tell you what, good fortune really favors the guy who works the hardest. And I think that's Chris Ballard. I think he's a good guy. I think he works really, really hard. And because of that, maybe God smiled on him a little bit and, put him in a position to make the right hire instead of what looked at the time to be the flashy hire, because Frank Reich is the right guy to lead this team.
Well, I think God just smiled on me because I literally have two of the top afternoon sports drive guys on my show here in Indianapolis on the balance. I tell you what, God just literally smiled on me. Derek Schultz and Query and Schultz. Now, you guys play nice. Now, I know you guys are competitors and all. No, Derek Schultz of the Query and Schultz show, 97.5 FM and 1260 AM, joins us as well on the afternoon drive show in Indianapolis. We're talking Colts Chiefs. Derek, welcome back to the balance. How are you, sir?
Yeah, this is exciting. I think you have two of the top four afternoon hosts in Indianapolis. That's quite a compliment.
Well, I wouldn't want to give Jake any love on the show with you. I know you like to have your space away from him. You guys have that love-hate relationship going on. Derek, talk with us a little bit about this journey. We've kind of been talking about this, Kent and I, for the last few minutes about this journey, about where the Colts are. They're up against Kansas City Chiefs. Talk with us a little bit about what you see in today's matchups. What are the keys? What are the X's? What are the O's?
Well, first off, just the fact that they're here, that we're having this conversation is great because I think a lot of us thought that the Colts weren't as bad as their record indicated to start the year, where they were really bagged up and they lost a game in Philadelphia that they had a million chances to win. They lost the opener against Cincinnati because Jack Doyle fumbled when they were driving for the game-winning touchdown. So I think we knew that the Colts were better than 1-5, but I don't think anybody knew that they were going to rattle off 10 out of 11 and be in a position where they were 2 wins away from the Super Bowl and have a chance this afternoon against a team like Kansas City, who was putting up video game numbers for most of the year. But I think that the Colts are in the position that you want to be in, right? You're hot. You're feeling really confident. You feel like you can play any type of game. If this game, because of the weather, gets kind of mucked up and gets physical, the Colts can play that game. If this game turns into a track meet, which I don't think they want because that suits Kansas City, but the Colts can hang around. The Colts can put up points. I think the best thing about this team is their balance and their versatility. They're not elite offensively like those peak Peyton Manning teams. While this is a very good defense, I don't think it's an elite defense, mostly because they haven't faced an elite quarterback and elite offense in the last 3 months like they're going to see today. But it's still a defense that can win games. So I just think that the Colts are in a really, really good position today. I kind of hesitate with the whole house money thing because I don't think Frank Reich buys into that. I don't think the players buy into that, nor should they. But I think fans go into this game thinking to themselves, okay, best case scenario, we're a win away from the Super Bowl. Worst case scenario, we just had a terrific season, and we're a little bit ahead of where this rebuilding project, where we thought it was. And there's a lot of things to look forward to coming up here in the future.
What do we know about Malik Hooker, Derek? Is he going to be a go for today or not?
Yeah, it looks like everybody's going to be a go outside of Ryan Grant, who is the only person ruled out, and probably not Tyquan Lewis. But from what I've seen, everybody else looks like they're going to be a go. Even the guys that appeared on the injury report, like T.Y. Hilton, Eric Ebron, Darius Leonard's got, I think, a shoulder issue. All of those guys weren't even listed status-wise for today. They just had 2 little hyphens next to their names, which means that they're good to go. They're going to play. So I would expect Malik Hooker to be out there. He was in the protective boot, but they say that that's just a precaution. You see that stuff all the time now. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's some type of serious foot injury like it was, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago. So I expect Hooker to be out here there, and boy, do the Colts need him, because with this big play offense that Kansas City has, they really need all hands on deck in that defensive secondary.
We're talking with Kent Sterling, afternoon drive here in Indianapolis, CBS 1430 AM. Also, Derek Schultz of the Query and Schultz Show, 97.5 FM here in Indianapolis at 1260 AM. In all fairness, I did invite somebody else to join us, but he's on a plane to Kansas City, and he's going to be doing his show out there. He's bigger than his britches. But he did say that he wished that he could come on. Let's talk a little bit. We'll start with you, Kent. Let's talk a little bit about Quentin Nelson. What an impact he's made on this team. He's just been able to come in. We saw that he was a great leader at Notre Dame, great pickup. And what the Colts saw in Quentin Nelson, we were excited to see him get drafted with the Colts. What are your thoughts about Quentin Nelson and the impact he's been able to make with the Indianapolis Colts?
Well, when you talk to the O-line coach for the Colts or the other linemen, Costanzo, Kelly, those guys, Glowinski too, Braden Smith, what they say is that this guy changed the culture of that meeting room, and he changed the culture of that offensive line, because he is really, really competitive. He lives to pancake guys. He likes getting credit for pancakes. And so when he comes off the field after getting one, he tells everybody all about it. And so that has stoked kind of a competitive fire from within that position group, where those guys, they go out and I think that they're playing at a higher level, and they all say that Quentin Nelson's a big part of that process. One guy that I think is a little bit unheralded because he's on IR in the development of Quentin Nelson is Matt Slauson. Because as you went to camp and you saw Quentin Nelson, and Quentin, he's a monolithically large guy. He's got the biggest back I've ever seen in my life in an NFL locker room. What Slauson has been is a tremendous mentor for Quentin Nelson. And throughout camp, Quentin would just badger him with question after question after question. Slauson, he's still in the locker room. He's still with the position guys. He's still he's still in the offensive line room. As they go over tape, it's still the same thing. It's Quentin Nelson asking Matt Slauson questions. Matt Slauson has been a terrific mentor, and I think as you look at the veteran free agents that Chris Ballard signed, you see mentors for the guys, the young guys. I'd say another one is Quincy Wilson, who has really seen a good turnaround season. And that in large part is because Mike Mitchell was signed, I think, after week 5. And Mike Mitchell, and Quincy Wilson will tell you, Mike Mitchell really set Quincy Wilson straight in how to be a professional, how to prepare for a game, how to look at a game snap to snap to snap to snap, not let kind of mistakes manifest themselves and weigh on you. He's a different player because of the mentoring of Mike Mitchell, as I think Quentin Nelson is a different player and a different guy early in his career because of Matt Slauson.
Did we lose you there, Kent? I still
No,
Kent, are you still
No,
there?
I still got you.
Kent just
I
finished.
still
Okay.
got you.
Okay, you cut out there at the very end. That's fine. We'll go over to you, Derek. Let's talk about Derek Ebron. Obviously, Quentin Nelson and Derek Ebron, both Pro Bowlers for the Indianapolis Colts. We could say some other Colts got snubbed, but that's okay. We'll take the high road on that. But talk with us a little bit about Ebron and the impact that he's made with the Indianapolis Colts.
I think Ebron's a classic example of a guy who had talent, but was, first off, he battled consistency issues in Detroit, but was just a bad fit with the Lions. And they gave up on him at 24, and he just needed a change of scenery. And the Colts, I think, have been able to use him in a way that he should be used, and probably he always should have been used. I don't know if Ebron is necessarily an every down tight end, but he is a gifted pass catcher and playmaker when he does catch the ball. I know drops are still a little bit of a problem for him. And because of that, the Colts decided, hey, look, we're just going to use him as a red zone threat. And that's basically what they did for most of this season, with Jack Doyle as the main tight end and the meat and potatoes guy, and Ebron as the guy in the 20s. So, remember Chauncey Billups, who played in the NBA for a long time? What people forget about Billups is that he started his career in Boston, and it was a disaster. He was I think the 6th pick or 3rd pick in the draft, somewhere in that range. And they had Patino, and it was just kind of a mess. The franchise was just, trying to recover from the post-Bird years, and they had no idea what they were doing. And Billups is just kind of this cast-off, and he bounces around for a while. And then he finds a home in Detroit, and they have a much stronger culture, and he joins a core of players, and they become NBA champions, and they're in the Eastern Conference Finals every single year. And Chauncey Billups ends up churning out what is kind of a borderline Hall of Fame career. I'm not saying that Eric Ebron's going to be in Canton or anything like that, but I think there are examples in sports of guys who are given up on at a young age, who have talent, and they just need to be focused in the right direction. They need to be in a system that benefits and highlights their skill set. And I think give Nick Sirianni and Frank Reich a lot of credit, because I think they, for the first time in Eric Ebron's NFL career, have been a brain trust that understands what his skills are, what he can do, what he cannot do, and they've been able to utilize that in the best way. And that's the reason that he's had this career year.
Kent, let's talk a little bit about another part of the success of the Colts so far. That's the defense led by Matt Eberflus. I mean, a lot of people probably didn't even know how to say his last name at the beginning of the year. Now he's being talked around the league. Hopefully, Irsay and the Colts find a way to keep him. We need him to lead our defense. Our defense have struggled for so long. How long have we said our defense is the problem? Our defense is the problem. Well, Matt has been able to come in and change the culture of that. And we've got to do everything we can do to Matt Eberflus. I probably can't even say his name with the Colts.
And I think he is. I think the one job that he was really in play for was the Cleveland Browns, and they went in another direction. They stayed internal with Freddie Kitchens. But Matt is a guy who is he's one of those. He's very specific in his guidance and in his coaching and in his evaluation. As they go over tape, it's everything, and they work really hard to correct guys and their errors. It's not yelling at them. It's correction all the time. It's kind of support and correct and support and correct. And Matt Eberflus has got the ear of this defense, which is very fast. You know what? If you got a great defensive coordinator and you've got terrible players, you're going to have a terrible defense. This defense is really good in part because of Matt Eberflus, but in part, too, because of Chris Ballard using draft picks wisely, understanding when a guy doesn't work anymore, like Basham. He went, and that was fine. They had guys over the top of him. Kamoko Toure was drafted over the top of Terrell Basham. You've got Darius Leonard. You've got Anthony Walker. You've got Malik Hooker, Quincy Wilson, a bunch of guys that he's drafted. Kenny Moore, that he found on the scrap heap, has been terrific. They've got good players, and they've got a system that fit it. And that system and the players are working in harmony to do some special things, and I think that continues today.
Real quickly, guys, before we wrap it up here, Derek, we'll start with you. Free agency's coming up. We want to look into the postseason, and we want to get past that. I know we got a lot going on the table today, but looking forward, free agency, I think Ballard is very much saying, hey, I might hold a tight purse on the free agencies. But you got to look at guys, and I know these